Hello and welcome to the Rabblecast. My name is Eric Hernandez, and you guys are in for a good one. Not only because we had fun, because we lived through it, but we cover a lot of different topics. We go from what's the opposite side of your elbow? You know, where your arm folds. We get into that all right off the bat. We talk about running into old friends. We talk about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. We talk about the other show that Doug does, Wings on Wings podcast. If you want to go check that one out, he references it a little bit here and there. And then we go to, oh gosh, some old movies. I know Real Geniuses mentioned at one point. We talk about Pepsi points. One of the lawyers who went to jail. A whole bunch of stuff. And then we reminisce a little bit as far as like the show itself. So it's a whole bunch to get into. I'm not going to delay you from that entertainment any further. We are brought to you by InsidePulse.com. You can find us under the variety of different sections out there: games, comic books, movies, TV, celebrity wrestling. Take your pick. We are also on Rabblecast.libsyn.com, where the show is uploaded directly. Check out our YouTube page, or our YouTube channel, I should say, at Rabblecast. Send us a tweet at Rabblecast. Check out the Rabblecast Facebook fan page and email us, rabblecast@gmail.com. And I say this again, for anybody new or old who's listening to the show, if you have stories, if you have feedback, send it in. Feel free. I referenced the email during the show itself. It's always great to hear from you guys. So if you have anything, if you're a new listener, if you're an old listener, drop a line, say hi, whatever the case is. We love to hear from it, and always know that there's somebody enjoying the show, not just us making dumb jokes to one another over microphones and over phone at this point. That's about it. Rabblecast@gmail.com. Send your stuff in. And for anybody who celebrates, I hope you guys have a happy Easter. We have a long weekend ahead of us, which is fantastic because I have a lot of things to do. Yeah, let's not delay any further. Let's get into it. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to another edition of the Rabblecast.
That's
I'm
right.
Doug.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step
I
on
said
you
I'm
there.
Doug.
Okay.
It's okay. I put an awkwardly long pause in there because I tend to do that.
Welcome to the show, everybody. We answer the hard-hitting questions that you want to know, like the fold in your arm opposite of your elbow. What is that called?
We have the fold in your arm opposite of your elbow.
Yeah. Your elbow is your elbow where your arm bends.
Yeah.
The fold in your arm where that happens, what do you call that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have absolutely no idea.
A lot of people refer to it as the Krellbow.
The what?
Krellbow.
Elbow. Oh, shit.
Krellbow. Yeah.
Like elbow, but with CR attached to the front of it?
I do believe that's how it's said or spelt or pronounced. I've only heard this is how it's referred to it as. I don't say that this is the exact terminology for this area of your body, but there you go. For anybody who wants to know, if you have something going on, like when you go to give blood or plasma, whatever you want to call it, and they put the needle in your arm to donate, that is done in your Krellbow.
Mm.
Again, it is not official. It is not, as far as I know, not in the Urban Dictionary, but that's what a lot of people refer to it as. So the next time you go to do something and you get a bug bite, or if you get somebody who slaps you, they're like, "Oh my God, not my Krellbow."
Ah, good to know.
Just answer that hard-hitting question that everybody was asking about. So that's right.
Here, I could throw this at you too.
Sure.
That skin on your elbow that's tight when your arm is bent, but it's all slack when your elbow is straight. Do you know what that's called?
Ooh, no, I do not. What's that called?
That is your weenus.
Your weenus?
That is the name of it. That is what that skin is called, the weenus.
Interesting. Weenus. You think that would be like another terminology for your taint? You know, the area between your butthole and your nutsack right there, the fleshy fun bridge, the taint.
Or the perineum.
Yes.
Sure.
Fleshy fun bridge. That's another terminology for anybody who hasn't figured out what that is. Yes, but the perineum, that is the technical term, correct.
Rock
which
on.
which most meditative practices ask you to concentrate on your perineum when you're doing certain things. I don't know why it goes all the way down there, but hey, yeah, it's a party.
Apparently so. Yeah.
There you go. How's your day, sir? How's your day, your week, your night? Any of the above?
Stupid.
any
I don't
partic-
know what to tell you.
any particular reason or
I don't like my job. I don't like my coworkers. I don't like the town I live in. I don't like the area I live in, and I don't like being old. Take your pick, pal.
gotcha. Okay. I'll take
How
all of
about
them.
you? Yeah.
Uh the week wasn't so bad. Um but earlier this week, well, yeah, probably like late last week, early this week. The lottery has gotten up high enough that it piques somebody's interest. Where you're like, oh, $2. I'll give away $2 to have a chance to win, hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion. So I walked around the lab and I told everybody, if everybody's feeling lucky, maybe you should go buy a lottery ticket because the jackpot has gotten to a certain point, and maybe you might be interested in trying your luck. And everybody's like, well, why don't you just go buy tickets for us? I mean, isn't that what you normally do? I was like, yeah, but I don't want to. I don't mind sharing money with you guys. I just don't want to share with the money with the lady upstairs in the office. And everybody starts cracking up. And I said, not for nothing. I'll go buy tickets if everybody wants me to, but and like, we'll give you some money. Just grab some tickets. We'll figure it out. I mean, what are the chances of us winning? I was like, it's a good point. So this week's been a round of different collections for lottery jackpots, and one of which was recently won somewhere in Jersey. Somebody won the, what was it, $1.13 billion on a single ticket. And now
Something like that. Yeah.
yeah, and then the Powerball is currently nearing the same amount. So I was collecting and everything else just to make sure everybody had a chance. So you never know. Look, the odds are not in your favor at all. In fact, I remember one of our friends years ago used to refer to the lottery as the idiot tax, because people will throw an absurd amount of money at it, hoping for a chance to break out of their doldrum routine lives, whatever the case is. And you never know what happens. But then again, there's always the problem that if you come into a large sum of money without the hard work that goes with it, the magnification of all the bad habits that you have will then come to light. Yada, yada, yada. Life falls apart, bad decisions. You suddenly have like penguins running around your house and everybody is coming looking, asking for their share. Like, remember that time? I'm your cousin. No, you're not. So,
Well, it's interesting because with that entire thing going on in regards to the whatchamacallit, to the lottery, did you know you are allowed to remain anonymous in New Jersey, but that is not the case for New York or Pennsylvania?
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I saw an article about that the other day. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. The current governor of New Jersey signed it into law after it had been vetoed by the previous administration. But yeah, not the case for the other states.
Interesting. Okay. I
Mhm.
remember a few years back, somebody had won a large sum of money. I don't know if it was one of the jackpots, but it was significant enough that when they went down to lottery headquarters, they put on one of the ghost face masks from Scream,
Yeah.
and they signed whatever paperwork and took the picture with the large check while wearing said mask. So
Cool.
that way they didn't have to divulge who they were. And then there's always a thing of, what do you do when you win the lottery and you get a large sum of money? Most times people say, get a lawyer. Get a lawyer and figure out what to do from there. Get some legal advice and be smart and invest. Don't go spreading money around like crazy. Don't go making it obvious that you have lots of money. Especially in our case, where we have a large group. I should say medium-sized group. just people who buy tickets together in a work setting, it's better to have a lawyer involved because then you have a non-partial third party giving you advice. I mean, yeah, you have to pay a little extra out of pocket, everybody involved, but you never know what can happen because, well, in our case, two of the two of the coworkers at our place decided they don't want to opt in. So while everybody else is putting in some money, they're like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Okay, no hard feelings. And I put on the little spreadsheet saying opted out. That way we have a record saying that, oh, they chose not to play. Whatever reasons is their own. But that way, if we win, when I was talking to my one coworker today, I'm like, if we win on the off chance, I'm sure we'll give them something. He goes, fuck that. They didn't pay. I was like, okay, well, that then you would take a vote and then you make it either majority rules or it has to be unanimous, whatever the case is. But that's when you get the non-partial party to be involved to give you that layer of protection. Because I've heard of stories where coworkers go in and buy a number of tickets together, and then one coworker decides, nah, I don't want to. But then you win. And then that one coworker that didn't play says, well, you're going to give me some, right? No, you didn't play. Well, then I'm going to sue your ass.
Mm-hmm.
And more often than not, I've heard that case go to court and they actually win a partial summary or whatever the case is. It's our legal system being what it is. You never know what's going to happen. You never know how the judge is going to interpret it. So it can work in their favor in some cases. In other cases, it
Mm-hmm.
won't. But, maybe, it might behoove you as a group to say, we'll give you something. It's not the full share because you obviously didn't play. But other people can say, oh, just pay us the $5 or $10 that you owe. And then, we'll just take it out of the cut. And then you're involved with everybody else.
Uh-huh.
Whatever the case is. Money
I
makes
would.
people do weird things.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a line from. Oh bloody hell! I think it was from Sons of Anarchy, where one of the characters said, "Money and pussy make men do evil shit."
Every time we talk about Sons of Anarchy, I want to watch it again.
Every now and again, I'll just go and I'll just run through a bunch of clips on YouTube, and that's about it.
Funny enough, I think, yeah, after we were in the craze of Sons of Anarchy, I put that the title song of the show as my ringtone.
Hmm.
But I'm one of those knuckleheads who never has their ringtone on. It's always
Yeah.
silent. So I never get to hear the song. I know it's there. It's just I never bother putting the ringtone on. So whenever I get a call, like even uh I have an iPhone and my watch is attached to it. So whenever it rings, just my watch vibrates. I'm like, oh, somebody's calling me. Never do I hear the ringtone anymore. It doesn't even register for me anymore. But I know it's there because I went through a lot of workarounds on the iPhone to get it because it was around the same time where buy ringtones for $1 or $1.50, whatever the case was. I'm like, no, fuck that. I just downloaded the song, ripped it off of YouTube, and went through some shenanigans and put it on my phone.
Yep.
I was like,
Yeah, them's what it did.
I'll do the legwork so I don't have to pay the dollar and $2 for the ringtone.
Hmm.
So, any other interesting things going around in your area?
What do you mean?
Did you go anywhere recently? Any trips?
No.
No.
Are you out
Oh,
of your mind?
I don't know. Maybe you probably had like a hair up your ass and decided I'm gonna go out today and I'm gonna go buy myself a Krispy Kreme. No,
No, no, no. I'm watching.
I don't know where the
Eric,
accent came from.
did you just meet me?
Yes. What's your name again?
Exactly. Have you not noticed I'm a joyless bastard?
No, I understand. I'm also trying to work the conversation through. Come on.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure what you were up to there. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll make some shit up. Um, what did I do last weekend? I don't even remember what the fuck I did. Fuck. Oh yeah, I did nothing. Shit.
That was a
Oh
whole
no, I
lot
went.
to. I didn't do nothing.
No, the farthest I went was last Friday. I drove up north to some friends' houses to record the other podcast. I'm on Wings on Wings.
Yeah.
But we're currently doing some nonsense with that one because we're running out of episodes. We're trying to stretch it out to hit some different goals. Um, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to talk about, what they want to keep secret, so I'm going to err on the side of caution. But I'll tell you this: we're doing filler episodes. So, by any chance, do you remember the hot sauce that was around in like the 80s and 90s? It was a brand that was just called Ass Kickin', and then it would have like different flavors.
Very vaguely.
Okay, they would have like Ass Kickin' Habanero and Ass Kickin' Jalapeno and Ass Kickin' Chili Lime and Ass Kickin' this and Ass Kickin' that. I remember them because they had Ass Kickin' Peanuts and they had Ass Kickin' Barbecue Sauce as well. They had a whole line of stuff. I remember seeing them in catalogs back in like the 1990s when I was a teenager and like a younger kid. Um,
Back in my day.
so and that's exactly it. That was back from the era when there were like no hot sauces out there. There was only like your choice was like maybe you had that, and if you went to the store, you had like Tabasco sauce and maybe Frank's, and that was about it. Um, the reason I bring this up is we did an episode the other day where there were only three of the five of us there. Once again, no podcast needs five fucking people, but whatever. It's an insane premise of a podcast anyway. Um, so what we did is they put out a 12 pack of small bottles, and the entire trick
Ah.
was it was supposed to be a contest to see like if you can get through all of them. So we made up 3 dozen wings. We each had a dozen wings, and we just went through the whole thing, recorded it. And let me tell you, that brand sucks.
Sucks as far as flavor or sucks as far as the spiciness? Like
Oh,
little to
flavor
none.
tasted like there was one sauce that was good.
Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, if you ever come across those, that was from an era when you could make shitty hot sauce because there was so little competition. Somebody was buying your sauce. Now that there's a million hot sauces out there, yeah, fucking forget about it.
I think the introduction of the ghost pepper has changed the idea of hot sauces quite dramatically because the Scoville units have gone off the scale with some of these hybrids that it gets kind of ridiculous. They might as well just put on the box, hate your asshole? Here, blow out your O-ring. Burns
Well,
going in, burns going out.
it's gotten to the point where it's interesting because I wish I could remember the dude's name, but he's I think he's a botanist. That's the plant people, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a botanist, and his entire thing is yeah, he's the guy who created the oh bloody hell, what was it? He gave us pepper X, which I think is currently the hottest pepper in the world, and whichever was the hottest pepper in the world before that, I think it was maybe the Carolina Reaper. He's the one who created that by crossbreeding different types of pepper plants. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm sure the guy's already working on his next, abomination in the eyes of God that's going to kill
I
somebody.
was to say he's playing God with peppers, splicing different different traits to one another. This one's hot. This one's slightly hotter. Let me marry the two together in a pot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then you end up with something that's like, oh yeah, I could eat this, but I will literally die.
this goes along the lines of science. Like I'm going back to Jurassic Park, but it applies. They oh god, what was the line? I'm just blanking on it now. They went forward with the science and doing the dinosaurs and the DNA and everything. They never asked. Uh, they did it because they could, but they never asked, should they? I'm paraphrasing. So when you're making this concoction of different, hot peppers or ghost peppers or whichever ones, marrying the spiciness of different ones to try to get a spicier pepper, it's just like, yeah, that's good in practice in theory, but do we really need one that's that hot? Do we need one that when you go to eat it and then you accidentally rub your eyes because you're sweating so much that your eyeball feels like it's melting out of your skull? Maybe we
Well,
should question.
the fun part about that is, I even a basic fresh jalapeno can do that to your ass, something fierce.
Yes.
I speak from experience. So
Oh, you touched
yeah,
your
I don't
eyes
know.
afterwards?
Well, no, I was this was many years ago before I lived with Holly and Jimmy. I went out to visit them. Jimmy was working late, so I was just hanging out with Holly, and she said, "Hey, I'm hungry. You want to let's order a pizza or something." So we ordered Domino's or whatever around the way. And she was like, "Oh, I have fresh jalapenos I grew in the garden. You want some?" And I was like, "Hell yeah." And I'm an idiot. I didn't use a knife to cut them. I just grabbed them and I just ripped them up with my hands and threw them on the pizza.
Oh God.
And then And I was like, oh, that was delicious. Well, and of course I was like, oh, I washed my hands, did not wash them thoroughly enough. And then I was like, oh, pardon me, I have to go take a piss.
Oof.
And then I get back and I'm sitting there, I was like, oh, why is my cock on fire? And yeah, that's how it goes. And when shit goes down.
I am oddly in pain, but also I think I discovered a new fetish.
That would
um,
be chemical play, yes.
yes. Years ago, I might have told this story on the show before, but for anybody new, years ago, Jen was going out to eat with a bunch of coworkers. This is back in her security days, and they went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and they have the challenge where you can try to get through the hottest hot sauce, and if you do, you get a T-shirt or I don't remember what the prize was, but it's just bragging rights that you got through their hottest sauces and their wing challenge, and under like a certain time limit. Well, the one guy decided he's going to go for it because he's, I believe he was of Indian descent, and he could tolerate hot food. So he figured, why not? I don't remember if he actually won the challenge or not, but what I can tell you is later on, he's hanging out with his girlfriend, and they get a little saucy, a little steamy, I guess you could say, and hanging out in his car. And like you said, you wash your hands, you think everything's great, and then you
Oh
decide
no,
that you
I know where this is going.
you decide you want to have some fun with your lady friend and enjoy yourselves, and his hand goes sliding a little down south up her skirt. And then as they're sitting in the car making out and having some fun, she goes, ow, wait, hold on. Ow, stop. Fuck, it burns. What the fuck? Turns out he washed his hands, but the oils got under his fingernails and he didn't bother being that thorough. So she had a hot box. Let's just put it that way. And was very upset with him. And apparently he did not get any further than that night. So
He was lucky if all that happened was she cut him off for the night.
yeah, exactly. That could have been a lot worse. I don't know exactly what she did to remedy the situation. I would imagine she was probably just sitting on like a water fountain to just try to clear it out afterwards. I don't know what the visual would be after that, but yeah, no, that could have led to a very serious problem if it went any further. So yeah, for anybody out there who's having a date night and decide they want to include some spicy foods before they go and do their thing. One, again, I'm going to reiterate, it burns going in, it burns going out. So be prepared for that. And make sure your hands are extra cleaned. And if you want to, fiddle with things below the belt or even above the belt, whatever the fuck. But yeah, that's our little PSA for this episode. Wash your damn hands if you're eating spicy foods, or just avoid spicy foods or put some gloves on. One or the other. And don't touch your eyes. And pay your taxes. And don't drink too much water before going to bed. You have to get up in the middle of the night. There
Yep.
we go. I'm in a weird space today. I'm sorry.
Apparently so, yeah.
You mentioned Holly. I ran into Holly recently.
Okay.
Uh, 2 nights ago. Yes, earlier this week. Local theater around here does half off tickets for movies at night, and I decided to go catch a viewing of Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire.
Okay.
And I go out there and have fun. I'm sitting by myself. Jen's like, I got the kids. Don't worry about it. Go enjoy yourself. And, I hope you have a fun time. I love Ghostbusters. The first two movies are great. The female Ghostbusters is what it is. Some people love it. Some people hate it. Whatever the case is. I don't mind it. And Ghostbusters Afterlife was a fun return to the series as far as the main storyline. I'm sitting there enjoying Frozen Empire, and then all of a sudden, there's a lot of jokes that are thrown out here and there, and Paul Rudd's a funny motherfucker in the movie. And I hear laughter. I'm like, that sounds familiar. Another joke comes across the movie screen, same laughter, and it's like in a group. So it's at first it's kind of hard to pick out, but you can tell by the initial outburst. I'm like, oh, I know who that is. That's Holly. And I was tempted to go and join whatever group she was sitting next to, but I was like, you know what? That would seem really odd, especially in the middle of a movie. But at the end of the film itself, I'm going back to my car, and sure enough, there she is standing and talking to somebody. And I could tell because her sweatpants have little bat figurines all over him. So I'm like, yeah, that's Holly. So which I walked over, said hi, and we quickly reminisced and caught up and everything else. So it was nice to see her. It was nice to go catch a good film and also run into an old friend that was it's been far too long since I've seen her in person. So there you go. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
I was about
Lots
to ask you, how was it?
lots of fun. If you enjoyed Afterlife in particular, Afterlife is the story of Egon leaves the Ghostbusters, absconds with a bunch of the equipment, the ghost traps, the proton packs, other stuff, other like chemicals and fuel samples, whatever the case is. Steals Ecto One because he believes there's some kind of big psychic tornado that's about to hit, and it's like I want to say it's like Oklahoma. So they refer to him as the dirt farmer because he's always buying hardware. Nobody knows what it's for. He's essentially building this giant ghost trap because Gozer apparently has a temple out in some like weird mountain area. So Ghostbusters are pissed off. The group is pretty much disbanded at this point, but it's the story of his granddaughter and daughter who come to deal with the remains of the home because he dies, spoiler, during his last mission to try to stop this iteration of Gozer, and then from there, his family has to pick up the mantle, and the old Ghostbusters are involved and everything else. So it makes this nice little tribute not only to the character of Egon, but it also makes a nice tribute to Harold Ramis, who had passed away before the movie had been done. So it was a nice story to get back to ghostbusting. Frozen Empire goes forward, and now they're back in New York City. They're back at the firehouse. They've taken up being Ghostbusters. Winston has become some kind of like millionaire through financing and everything else. So now he runs the financial side of Ghostbusters, but he also has like this super secret Ghostbusters lab where they're developing projects and experiments and everything else, all in the name of trying to further the Ghostbusters name and brand. Ivan Reitman, the director of the original movies and worked with his son on Afterlife, passed away before Frozen Empire could be made, but his son did show him the screenplay for Frozen Empire, and he gave his blessing, saying, "That sounds great, go for it." So at the end of this film, you'll see it says "for Ivan." So another touching family tribute, and as far as people who were involved in the film. But there's a new monster or a new ghost. They go back to the firehouse, like I said, back to New York City. William Atherton, who played the one politician who's trying to shut the Ghostbusters down, is now the mayor of New York. There's a funny moment in the movie where when he pops up, somebody in the crowd in the background goes, "Hey, it's Dickless." So I was like, all right, good, good callback right there. But it's a fun story of seeing Egon's granddaughter Phoebe coming into her own. She's also a scientist, very much in the same vein as Egon. Collects spores, molds, and fungus and everything else. But how the story plays out and the different locations they go back to the old library from the first movie. You see the old librarian ghost at one point. Ray is there at one point. Oh, I already mentioned Ernie Hudson returns as Winston, and you get to see him as he's helping things out. At one point, Venkman shows up, so we get Bill Murray again. We don't get Sigourney Weaver, and we don't get Rick Moranis, who apparently said that they were not approached, but there were so many characters already on screen. I can see why they weren't approached.
Yeah.
There was just so much going on. They already said that if they get the go-ahead for a third movie in this storyline, that they will approach other people. Slimer is back. In fact, he's haunting the firehouse itself, which kind of makes it feel, I don't know if you ever watched the real Ghostbusters cartoon.
Yes.
The whole storyline and the whole setting feels like one big version of the Ghostbusters cartoon, essentially. You have a lot of stuff going on there. They introduce some new technology, some new gadgets here and there. And it just feels like a fun little romp back in Ghostbusters world. If you're going to this movie going, "Oh, I need to see a masterpiece. I want to see something like very well filmed," or whatever the case is. If you have high standards for this, you might be let down. If you're going to watch a Ghostbusters movie, you're right on point. I see a lot of reviews saying that, "Oh, this movie could have been so much more. They could have done this. It's like, can we not be overcritical about a Ghostbusters movie? Like, go watch the first one. It's a marriage of comedy and horror, and it does pretty well. There's a reason why it became a big hit and a cult classic. Part 2 is questionable. In fact, they do acknowledge the all the past Ghostbuster stuff, with the exception of the female Ghostbusters, because that's a different universe, I guess you can say. But they acknowledge the Ghostbusters in the Statue of Liberty. They acknowledge the Ghostbusters toys for the different commercials. They even show some of them. They acknowledge just like all the nostalgia for Ghostbusters is used as background story for this. So that's a nice touch. I'm trying to remember what else. From there, like, again, you have all these different things. They introduce newer characters. Patton Oswalt makes a cameo as the librarian for folklore in the old library. Kumail Nanjiani shows up. He's the fire master, which plays into the story. Even though he's trying to hawk like his grandmother's old souvenirs and collectibles, what he thought is some kind of like weird orb that it's a brass orb that holds an entity, which plays into the main story. Who else? I mentioned Paul Rudd before. Then you have the kids and everything else. Finn Wolfhard from the Stranger Things series. He comes back from his previous role in Afterlife as the older brother. It's just a lot of cool stuff that happens, and it's almost a 2-hour movie, which I don't remember how long the old one was. But I'm sitting
What,
there.
the Afterlife?
Well, I guess Afterlife was close to an hour and a half. But I don't like the. I don't remember Ghostbusters 1. I don't remember how long that movie was.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
But they play on the idea of the containment unit being a point of the problem, because it's for years and years and years they've been catching ghosts. What happens if you keep, let's say your laptop, let's say you keep saving videos and pictures and programs and everything. So what happens to your laptop? Eventually it gets full.
Yeah.
So they never foresaw this problem because they didn't know how many ghosts there were in the world. At one point, the containment unit has some trouble, and they need to figure out a way to get around it. Part of Winston's program is they're making a brand new containment unit, so they can house as many ghosts as necessary at this point. But they say at one point during the film that if they were to take all the ghosts out of the old containment unit in the firehouse and transport them to this new one, which I think was on Staten Island, they never get specific, but the scenery gives you that idea it's that far out. They say if you do that transfer on regular shifts, you might be able to finish moving all the ghosts to the new containment unit in about 7 years. So that's a lot of ghosts. The big bad from this movie needs the containment unit because it's got essentially an army waiting in that unit that it could use for its nefarious deeds as is about to freeze the entire city over. And story progresses from there.
It's interesting because I'm pretty sure that was the storyline. I mean, obviously they touched on that in the original Ghostbusters from '84, but I'm pretty sure at least one episode of the cartoon dealt with this.
With the containment unit?
Yeah, something about where it's like the containment unit is getting full. We got to figure out something.
Yes. And this is a nerd dump right here. The real Ghostbusters was, a lot of the episodes were written by J. Michael Straczynski, who is a very great comic book and TV writer. I do believe he was one of the writers behind Babylon 5. There was, I think it was Rising Stars was the comic book that he wrote. I love that storyline. If anybody gets a chance to check that one out. Essentially, there's a bunch of people who get bestowed powers during this weird meteor that comes across the world, and any baby that's in utero becomes super powered. But the thing is, as they grow up and develop, each one has their own abilities. As each one of them dies through their own means, the remaining powers are transferred to whoever's left in the group. So if you have 100 people who have superpowers, one of them dies, whatever power or strength they had is now added to the remaining superpowered beings. So one of the characters ends up going off and killing others, so they get the remaining characters could get stronger and stronger till there's only one. Awesome premise for a story. I loved it. Rising Stars. But going back to the cartoon, yes, there was one where the containment unit was full. They had to figure something out. There is a cartoon episode that is it's meant to be a direct follow-up to the movies, in particular the first one, because they have to get rid of their jumpsuits, the flight suits that they wear.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, in the movie, they all wear the same brown-colored flight suits. In the cartoon, each one of them has a slightly different colored flight suit.
Yes.
This episode describes as to why the suits that they wore during the fight with Gozer at the top of the apartment building are all exposed to a certain amount of psychokinetic energy. So because of that, they have to be disposed of a certain way. They leave it to Venkman to get rid of him, and Venkman decides he wants to take a shortcut and just kind of do a roundabout, get rid of the suits. What happens is those suits are possessed by their essence of the Ghostbusters. The psychokinetic energy essentially holds an imprint of them, so the suits come to life with past versions of themselves. Now these flight suits are running around busting ghosts, but they're not really busting ghosts. They're just going through the motions and attacking everything in the city.
Hmm.
To which then the Ghostbusters have to go fight themselves, and it's the showdown Ghostbusters versus movie Ghostbusters. It's a fun little story. It's called Citizen Ghost. If anybody wants to look it up, I believe the majority of the real Ghostbusters episodes are on YouTube, so you can definitely find them on there. And it's a fun little what if from the follow up from the movies. But yeah, the storage of the containment unit itself becomes a problem where it kind of overflows. And once again, there's all the different ghosts. That's essentially, without spoiling the ending, that's essentially what happens in this one, where once again the containment unit is breached, everything is released, and by the end of it, they leave it very, very open ended. We're like, oh, there's all these ghosts in the world again. I guess we're back in business, and they have to go back out and recapture everything. So if anybody's looking forward to another Ghostbusters film, this one's been doing pretty well so far in this first week. And that's saying something, especially since movies are kind of having a tough time at the box office. But if it keeps performing well, I don't see why there wouldn't be a third one. The nostalgia's there. People love it. There's a different generation at this point. So everybody can jump on board. I mean, I'm looking forward to showing it to my son. He loves the Ghostbusters already. He has not seen any of them yet. I don't think he's ready for them, especially like the jump scare with the librarian ghost might scare the fuck out of him. So
Yeah.
they do it again though. They do a genuine good job of taking horror moments and jump scare moments, marrying them with comedy and a good storyline, and you go from there. It's what you would expect if you delve back into the world of Ghostbusters. It's just a continuation of all little things. So the callbacks are there. I mean, hell, they're back in the firehouse. The interesting thing that I found out, they actually filmed the majority of the film in London on a soundstage, and they rebuilt the firehouse 1-to-1 scale.
Wow.
Which, when you watch, I believe it was Adam Savage on his YouTube channel, he goes and he visits and he checks out the new proton packs and how they make the slime and how they do the effect for Slimer going through somebody. It's a cool little breakdown of all the different things. But as they're walking through the firehouse, Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman, would talk about, this is weird because, I was in New York when we were filming the movie, and I was just a kid back in the time. So when they're filming scenes in the firehouse, I'm over here sitting on the stairs that lead up to the second floor, and here we are in this rebuilt version of the firehouse, and it feels like I'm still in New York. Like, I know we're in London, but it feels like we're over there, not here. So it was like blowing his mind a little bit. There was this nice detail that they added to the film. He talks about it on Adam Savage's channel, where if you look on the floor of the firehouse where they park the car, you'll see that there's an inconsistency in the tiles that are laid out. And it almost looks like somebody like left the floor unfinished in a sense, because you have like the bare floor and then tiles for everything else. It's not that somebody left it unfinished. It's supposed to represent where the crossed rift dimensional opening was in the first movie when Peck and the one public worker shut down the containment unit. When that energy goes blowing through the first floor, second floor, and through the ceiling, you'll see on the floor where that is represented by the unfinished floor. But then they also panned up with the camera, because if you look at the ceiling of the first floor, which you won't necessarily see in the film, you'll also see that the ceiling has like a patchwork done to it. Mm-hmm. It's not fully fixed because that also shows where it went through the ceiling. So you have like the building bears a scar from the first movie, essentially. It was a nice little touch.
Oh, cool.
So stuff like that. Again, just seeing all the different people, all the different callbacks. It's nice that Winston went from your blue collar worker to now he's rolling in money. So now he funds the Ghostbusters. I think that's a nice touch. But getting everybody back together and talking about all the different things, pretty fucking cool. So I might go watch it again, but once it comes home on digital release or streaming, I will definitely be watching this over and over and over again. It's just that much fun. But then again, I'm also, a Ghostbusters fan. Years ago, Jen bought like a soundboard that you could build your own proton pack. All you needed was somebody with a vacuum form and do like the little plastic mold. You could put in the LEDs and the wiring and everything, and you could always put that together. She even bought like a pair of welding goggles that you can modify to make them look like the goggles that they wear in the movie. And then I'm sure they're gonna have more of them now, and I'm sure that's gonna go up in price since then. But they have little kits where you can actually buy and build your own PKE meters. Just so you can walk around and pretend like you're hunting for ghosts.
Oh, all
So
right, there you go.
I don't know, good shit. So between watching the film, enjoying the film, and the way it wraps up, um, to which if anybody goes to watch the movie, there is a bonus scene mid credits. There's nothing after the credits, so don't stick around the entire time. But did you watch Afterlife?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters.
Okay. Remember the little mini Stay Puft in Walmart?
Yes.
The mini Stay Puft men come back. And this is, again, if you don't want to stick around for the bonus scene, there's a shot where they're at a gas station. This trucker pulls up and he's getting fueled for, whatever truck he's making. He gets out of his truck, goes over to get something out of a vending machine. And as he's fighting with the vending machine, you see the truck starts to move, and it immediately gave me the vibes of like Maximum Overdrive, like the truck almost came to life in a sense.
Okay.
And as it starts to roll, they cut to the inside of the truck, and the cabin, you can see all the mini Stay Puft are driving the truck away. As the truck pulls out of the gas station and the guy turns around, realizes that his rig is leaving on its own, the side of the semi has the advertisement for Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. To which they're saying, if we make a third, we're going to incorporate the mini Marshmallow Man in some shape or form that might lead back to a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So the return of Stay Puft might be happening if we get a third film. I don't know. For me, that's a nerd moment, on which I'm like, oh, I would love to see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man again. Yes, please bring him back. New
My
York
problem with
City.
that is there's so many other things they can go with. Why rehash that?
True, absolutely. I can see it being like just like it was in the first film. It's not the final challenge they have to overcome, but it'll be something that they can fight and then lead into whatever else. Because what was it? Ray, the thought just popped in there.
Yeah.
So actually, when it was it? No, Marshmallow Man was the final thing they fought in that film, and then they had to shoot. They fought it as it climbed the building, and then they crossed the streams into the gate, and that which like did the blowback and destroyed everything. But hey,
Yeah, and you basically see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man basically getting like melted for like or ripped apart or blown up or whatever the fuck.
yeah, just don't get too close to the fire. Um, yeah, because that also led to the one scene of William Atherton's stunt double getting hit with, was it shaving cream? They just pretty much dropped on him.
Yeah, I think I can't remember what they did. I think it was shaving cream they used as a stand-in with maybe some type of a thickener.
Yeah, but the thing was they were going to do it with Atherton first, but then they decided to go with the stunt double. But the initial drop of whatever material that they used essentially floored the guy, like just down to the pavement, because it just came down with such weight. So like, yeah, let's not do that. And then you have the shot in the film where it's a lighter consistency material, but it comes down in a gush either way, and it covers the guy as he looks around. Which, all right, if you were talking about real life applications, hot marshmallow that's been liquefied falling down on you, I can imagine one, it not being a pleasant experience, but then I would also be kind of hot and might
Yeah.
leave some burns or some marks after the fact. But whatever the case is, it's a movie, and it's a movie about them catching ghosts. So let's not pick it apart too much.
Let's let's also take a minute and think about William Atherton. Has there ever been anybody who's been better at playing a dick for almost an entire career?
No, he found his niche and he has done a really good job about it. There was there's a story where he was approached to do a movie, and I believe it was Die Hard.
Okay.
They were trying to get him to be, I believe, the Alan Rickman part at one point. And he goes, I don't want to be, I don't want to play the asshole all the time. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. Whatever the case is. But yet, when the movie Biodome rolled around, he took the role because it was the asshole role.
Hmm.
So it's like, come on, dude. Like, but to his credit, not only did he play a great asshole, and he played a very, very great foil to Peter Venkman and Bill Murray's character, but the amount of backlash he caught back in the 80s and for most of the 90s, where he couldn't even go to bars in New York because people would actually get angry at him and attack him. That's
Jesus
how
Christ. Yeah.
that's how much people bought into the character. It's like, hey, it's Dickless. Fuck you. You tried ruining the Ghostbusters. Like, they're fictional characters. It was a job I was hired to. You know what? I'm just gonna go home.
At that point, if people are like, "Hey man, how come you were a dick to the Ghostbusters?" At that point, like that person is just not home. So yeah, what are you
Yeah.
gonna do with that situation?
Friend of the show, Jason Meehan, who was the guy who was behind the Asbury Zombie Walk. We had him on a long time ago. Um, he and his sister Kelly, hi Kelly, went to a convention where William Atherton was, making an appearance and doing photographs and signings. And he walks up to Atherton apparently and goes, "No, I am God." And Atherton's like, "You watched that movie." Referring to Biodome when he eats the parrot. He was like taken aback the fact that somebody like had watched some of these films and actually enjoyed them and what just wasn't just attacking him. And he said that the guy was like genuinely just really, really nice to interact and talk to. So it was one of those things like you never know what you're going to get when you run into a celebrity, but it was one of those fun little stories. Like, oh no, William Atherton's a cool dude. Like he's taken his hits for the characters he's played because some people just can't separate reality and fiction. But if you get a chance to meet him at any convention or anything, he's a cool dude, and he's willing to take a picture. And I think he even like was trying to like please here have a cookie or something like that. Like he was offering some of his food. Like no, it's okay. Like we just want to say hi, big fans. That's all. So I was like, good shit. I like that Atherton's still out there and getting through it, and especially now. If he does the convention circuit again, I'm sure he'll have a lot of people popping up saying, "Hey, Dickless is back." I remember years ago we were at I want to say it was '05, '06. We went out to Pittsburgh. There was a Comic-Con out there years ago, and Ernie Hudson was there. And I got a signed autograph from Ernie Hudson back in the day. Um, Again, cool guy, willing to meet with the fans and everything else. As I was going through his book, he has like a bunch of different 8x10s. I picked, of course, the 8x10 where he has scenes of him from The Crow.
Okay.
So he signed that, but he also had Hand That Rocks the Cradle. And I was like, oh, wow, I remember that film. And again, this is like '05, '06, so it's not too far removed from like, what, 10 years after that film? And The Crow was
And
like,
that Rocks the Cradle was like early '90s, so
I want
a
to say it
little
was
over a decade.
'92, I want to say.
That sounds about right. Yeah, with Rebecca De Mornay.
Yes. Yes, the story of the hot babysitter who goes a little crazy.
But going back to William Atherton, I was thinking about him a lot lately because I just watched Real Genius twice in the last week,
Yes.
and that is a great fucking movie.
That's a movie that's so well, for us growing up, it was something we caught and we enjoyed. But I feel like that's so underrated now in the long scheme of things. Not many people talk about it. Not many people reminisce about it, especially a very young Val Kilmer.
Oh yeah.
So I wish I could remember more lines from it. It's been a while since I've seen it. But who was the guy? I don't remember the name of the actor, but the character Laszlo.
Oh, the guy who lives in the he goes into the closet and he's got like he built out like a little lair in the tunnels underneath the university.
Yes.
I can't tell you the actor's name, but I can tell you this, and this blew my mind because I just found this out. He played Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes. If you go a little bit further back, even I want to say before, might have been before, Real Genius, uh, the raunchy comedy Joysticks. He plays King Vidiot. He's the bad guy that they have to play against
Okay, I
to
never
save the
saw that.
arcade. It's it's think Porky's, but in an arcade.
Okay, that sounds like something I should watch. I don't know why I never got around to it.
It's fun. It's stupid. There's gratuitous nudity. It's of its time. I believe it's for free on YouTube. So if you want to look it up, you can easily catch it. But the actor who played Laszlo also plays King Vidiot, and he's all decked out in like punk. So he's got like a leather vest and spikes, and his hair is all done punk and everything else. He's got makeup on his face. It's a really product of its time. Let's just put it that way. But where was I going with this? Oh, Laszlo from Real Genius. His story in that film, where he's filling out all the different sweepstakes because it says no purchase necessary, just fill out an envelope or fill out an index card with information and mail it in, where he's
Yeah.
trying to game the system on the one contest, uh, is based on a real thing, actually. There was a real life story where people were doing that, where they would send in entries without having to make any purchases, and they were just sending them like large quantities of entries. And it got to the point where the contest is like, well, fuck, we have to honor this because we said no purchase necessary, just do this. We just didn't think there would be people out there that were crazy enough to submit these many entries.
Yeah, because I believe that was put in there just because it was a legal way to get around that. It was a game of chance, I believe.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the idea is you would buy whatever product and then send the proof of purchase as your entry. But if you can also send the index card, that would be another way of entering said contest. On Netflix, I don't remember the name of the documentary, but there was the guy who was trying to get the Harrier jet from Pepsi. Remember Pepsi points back in the day?
Oh yeah.
So Pepsi ran this commercial with Pepsi points, and they introduced this catalog. In that catalog, you can get like swag. You can get sweatshirt, t-shirts, bracelets, watch, hat, sunglasses, whatever. They had a variety of different Pepsi branded and also third party branded merchandise that you can get by submitting X amount of Pepsi points, whether it's from the bottle, from the box of cans, the cans themselves, whatever the case is. All you needed was the proof of purchase. You collect enough points, you can send it in. Well, during this commercial at the very, very end, they put this large number of points as they show the kid in the commercial landing a Harrier jet. Well,
Yes.
there was somebody out there in the real world who says, I want that Harrier jet. And they did everything they could, like even at the whole thing, no purchase necessary. They were just collecting a bunch of different things. And they amassed enough where they got the points. And they submitted them. And Pepsi said, wait, what now? And it actually became a legal battle where they're like, okay, we'll give you $10,000. How's that? And the guy's like, no, I want my jet.
hmm
Lawyers got involved and like, you should probably just take the money because you're not going to get the jet. Because yeah, but this is principle now. Like they advertised it so much so that afterwards, that when that happened, that whole story broke out. They recut the commercial so that they had to put a bunch of question marks as far as how many points the jet was going to be worth
hmm
to try to cover their asses. Like you ran this on television, you ran this in multiple stations, you put a point value on a Harrier jet, thinking nobody was crazy enough to go for it. Well, they're people crazy enough, and now you've got to fix this. If you watch the documentary, it's the story of how the guy who was doing it was like this thrill seeker and everything else. He meets up with another guy who was very well funded, I guess you can say, a rich person, and he essentially backed the kid up, saying, "If you want your jet, it's gonna cost you because we're gonna have to go to court with these guys, and they're not gonna go easy on you." And the kid's like, "No, we can do this," and they actually fought to get this jet. The documentary's fun because they also had the one, oh gosh, I can't remember his name, the one lawyer who was helping them out at the time ends up becoming the lawyer for Stormy Daniels as she's taking on Trump for the whole sex scandal. Um,
Oh, Michael, something with an A. I can't remember.
yeah. Fuck, I can't remember his name either. But if you watch the documentary, he is involved and he gets interviewed quite often, and he gives his take on what's going on as they're trying to like track down information, talk to different people, and just figure out why Pepsi is fighting them so hard when like they just give him the fucking jet. Well, Pepsi doesn't want to put a jet on their books, so they're gonna
Yeah,
do everything they can to try to fight this kid off.
Michael Avenatti.
Thank you. There you go. Uh, that's a fun documentary on Netflix. It's a few episodes long, but it's just a fun thing to see what happens when sweepstakes or contests get taken to an extreme, and you never know what the turnout's going to be. But
Side note, do you know where Michael Avenatti is now?
I do believe he's in jail, isn't he?
You are correct. He's in federal prison
Yeah,
and will be for, I think, like another 15 years.
he was caught doing some underhanded schemes with other clients. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, he was helping out Stormy Daniels, I remember, for a little while, and then I don't remember what the exact story was, but he was caught doing some illegal activities with other clients, trying to force them to give information or um, cooperate with him, essentially. And they took him to court in that respect. And bye bye, Mr. Avenatti. So hey,
Yep.
them's the breaks.
Yeah, that's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Yes, sir. Wow, when we started this show, I did not think we were going to go from Krellbo to Ghostbusters to Harrier jets, all the other nonsense in between. Wow, okay. It's the Pepsi points thing reminds me of when Marlboro was doing the same thing. They started putting points on the packs of cigarettes,
Hmm.
and you collect all the different points, and you can send in for a different swag for the Marlboro and everything. It's like, oh, we'll reward you for your cancer by giving you a shitty sweatshirt. Years later, like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be putting points on there. That's not a good thing. So,
That was a different time.
no, absolutely. How do you get repeat business? How do you get people to willingly give you their money? Well, if you make something that's collectible, even in the case of cancer sticks, then yeah, that'll be something that people will join up to. Hey, here's an idea. Wait, Wings on Wings, is that just a regular show? Is it available through like Patreon or anything like that?
What do you mean?
Do you like
To
how
listen to?
how do you guys put the show out? It's just regular podcast
Oh,
that's available?
okay. Okay. It's on Spotify. It's on, I think it's on Apple Podcasts, all for free. Or if you want to go back to, or you can go to, I think it's on the soon to be named network.
And just to be clear, that is the name of the network itself, right?
That's the joke. It's the soon to be named network, and that's been the name of it forever.
Okay, just
It's
making
never
sure.
going to be, no, that's the joke. Yeah.
No, the reason I ask is I'm thinking to myself right now, I'm like, if you guys don't have like a Patreon or anything like that, you're taking advice from somebody who hasn't done it himself. So take this with a grain of salt. But if you wanted to drive people or drive like a subscriber base, let's say, you could have like different ranks for like pilots, and they could subscribe to get like, let's say if you put the old shows behind a paywall for any reason,
Hmm.
you become I don't even know what the rankings are for pilots. You want to be a co-pilot, or do you want to be a rookie, or whatever the case is. You want to sit in the jump seat and just like use like flight terminology to try to like different levels of subscriptions or donations, essentially. And then you're gonna have it like that way to try to, because again, if you make it to a point where it's something that's a collectible, but it's something that's attainable, then you go from there, and then you give like little pilot's wings with like chicken wings on there, like in a X formation. I don't know. My brain just went in a weird.
I was about to say, that's a lot more, that is a lot more work than I'm willing to fucking put into this fucking thing.
I'm sure years ago, and I know I've mentioned this a couple times. Years ago, Jimmy said to me, "You should open up a Patreon and do that for the show." I mean, you have enough people who are interested in the show, maybe it can get enough of a following through Patreon. I'm like, yeah, that's something. And I remember starting writing the bio. I actually signed up for Patreon, opened up a little account, never got past right in the bio. Like I went to go save it, it got erased because the browser refreshed, and I was like, oh, I'll get back to it. Never went back to it. So I understand the pain of having to put extra effort into something that's supposed to be just fun and enjoyable, done with friends, and then try to say, hey, why isn't this show doing something different or doing more or whatever the case is? Oh, you could. You just it's the level of dedication, and I've already put a lot into this show as it is. That between you and I recording, which is the fun part, the editing, the loading up, the advertising, and the writing the summaries for the episodes, it's like, oh fuck, man.
Mhm.
it starts to mount on you a little bit. I still mentioned the backlog that's still there. I think we're still a couple episodes behind. I'm trying to find the time during the week where I can actually sit down, listen to the backlog, as far as the playback, and then get it all up. So here I am talking about Ghostbusters, which just came out last week. This episode probably won't be out for a few weeks after the movie's release. So really, I could talk about any point about it. I just don't want to spoil it for you if you're interested in actually seeing it. So,
Yeah, I'll see it eventually.
eh, like I said, it's a fun one, but um, yeah, as far as the show, this show or Wings on Wings at that point, it depends on how much you want to get into it. Because I know, like Kevin Smith has that Kevin Smith Club, so a lot of his shows, because he's very prolific when it comes to podcasting, he has a ton of different shows that he now puts behind paywalls. If like for the
Uh-huh.
older shows or the older episodes, you can subscribe and become different levels of a member. So I think like you can be a clerk or you can be a yoga hoser or whatever the case is. Like he uses his movie titles as far as like different levels, and that way, depending on what you have, not only do you get access to the old shows and the old information, but you also get to be like participate in different events and things that he does. So, but that's also a guy who has no shame when it comes to self promotion, and he loves talking about his own projects. Which, don't get me wrong, it's if there's anybody who's going to advocate for a project that you do, it should be you yourself. Because if you want
Hmm.
word out there, you got to spread the gospel. Otherwise, not many people are going to know what happens. When I do advertising for this show, I put it up on the Facebook fan page. I put it up on my timeline. I share the post. Twitter has become kind of like a on again, off again kind of thing. Never bothered with other assets or aspects of social media, but I mean to put the show on Spotify because a lot of people go to Spotify, and the show's been free for years. So why stop now? But
Hmm.
like I was saying, Jimmy has always said, just open up a Patreon if people want to put money towards the show. That's something that they can decide, but at the very least, give them that option. I'm like, it's not a bad idea. Uh, I always say that if I could get paid to do this, that'd be fucking great. Don't get me wrong, but the only thing that really stops me is the fact that there are so many shows out there at this point, podcast wise.
Hmm.
Like we're talking in the millions, and we're not like you can include the ones that have started, stopped, had long hiatus. I mean, this show had a long hiatus for a while, and then caught back up. It's just once if you can find your people, great. There's old listeners of this show that still hang on. I love you guys for still listening and saying that you enjoyed the show, recent episodes, whatever the case is. That makes me feel really good. I know this show has reached people in different parts of the country, in different countries altogether. So for the fact that this weird show has found any kind of audience, I'm always grateful for. I always just feel like it's just you and I having a conversation. Whether people listen in or not, it doesn't change what we talk about for the most part, with the exception of some more personal matters we might want to keep private.
Yeah.
That's a different story. We have a level of sharing that we're comfortable with. But with that said, when somebody says, oh, I was listening to this on a long drive and it really helped, keep my mind off of things, or hey, I was going through a tough time. I always go back to the one story of one of the guys when we were doing wrestling coverage overseas. I want to say in the UK, the one guy was training at a wrestling school and he would actually sleep in the wrestling school because he didn't have a place to stay at the time. But when we would like just talk about wrestling news and make fun of the show or just you know, some of the more silly or comedic moments, like the show would help him get through what he was going through. Um, Matt Peters from GCPD, at one point for him, he was talking about he had to make long treks to visit family members, and it was a tough time for him. But the show kept him entertained and kept him sane to a certain degree. Um,
Hmm.
so that's always been a fun part of the show when you hear how it reaches somebody and how it affects somebody. So again, we're talking about the Krellbow, we're talking about Ghostbusters and Harrier jets. Um, but even Wings on Wings, have you guys ever had feedback where somebody says, you know, I remember that show, love that show, love whatever that you guys are talking about?
No. Oh my God, no.
No.
That show sucked. What's the matter with you? You out of your mind. I love you, but what the fuck? I'll tell you what. The most we've ever gotten is some people have just said like the show makes them laugh because if one of the things that we do, because there's so many of us, if an episode is really just a complete piece of shit and there's nothing to work with because it's just crap. And there's been quite, I mean, that was basically, the best hot streak we went on was maybe 10 episodes. Like, other than that, it would be like one good episode, three shitty episodes, two good episodes, two more crappy episodes. But, we would just then like turn it into like personal discussions based on what was going on with it. There was one episode from 2021 that got really, really heavy because one of the storylines in the show was for the two brother pilots, the Hackett's. Their father had mental illness and their mother just disappeared on them one day, and then she shows up again. And a lot of, I'm not telling any tales out of school because we posted this and recorded this and posted it online back in 2021. A couple of the people who were involved with have had difficult situations with parents, so that's what it became a discussion of.
Mm.
So yeah, there have been episodes that have gotten strangely emotional like that as we've talked about like real life matters. But again, and that's part of that is just the fact that there's five different people who have gone through all kinds of shit in their own lives and come from different backgrounds. But it's not because of it's because that we basically had to make our own episode if we just didn't have like that much to work with, because otherwise if it was like if we strictly just talked about the episode of Wings, there would be episodes where it'd be like this happened, this sucked, there was no point to this joke fell flat as hell, wow, cool, a gay joke, wow, that's fucking brilliant, and this was like 1994, so what the fuck, motherfucker. And yeah, episode's over, so let's rate and review and we're out of here. So we're trying to put like full content back in.
Gotcha. Okay. You guys don't have like an email address where people can send feedback and anything like that?
I've heard it no less than 150 times being read, but I can't remember it.
Okay. Like I said,
It's under it's shit underscore wings on wings. No, I think that's our Instagram account. I don't know. Sorry, I can't. Oh, fuck, man, I'm sorry, I can't remember.
no, that's fine. I kind of put you on the spot there. But no, every now and then, like the fan page will get a hit, or somebody will say something, somebody will drop a comment, um, emails will get dropped every now and then. It's interesting to read what somebody thinks about the show, and you like you said, you're having a conversation, you throw out a joke or whatever the case is, and then somebody will go, oh, I really love that show, or I really love that movie, whatever the case was, or I was watching wrestling back in the day, and I was doing this in my life, and I was like, okay, it's like a little window into people's lives that you would not be privy to otherwise. And it's just a very, very interesting thing how people react to the show sometimes, that it just catches me off guard. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it might be oversharing on their part sometimes, which I always say, if anybody ever sends an email to the show, first off, rabblecast@gmail.com. If you want me to share it, or if you want to, put your name to it, whatever the case is, add a note, please, that says okay to share or okay to read on air, whatever the case is, because I don't want to read somebody's story and then find out later on it was something that was a private matter or something that wasn't supposed to be shared on air, that kind of thing. That's why the majority, you really don't hear most of the stories told on here, except for the old ones that we used to read off back in the day. and I'm talking like way back when the show was like still in its first few years. It's it's an honor, to be honest. Like some of the times just to find out some stuff that people went through and how the show, just found found its way into their playlist, into their car, or into their lives, a regular rotation of different things. It's fucking weird, and it's also great to hear from old friends. Mark Post, another a former guest of the show. Um, I have not seen him in person in a few years, like well before the pandemic. But every
Hmm.
now and then he'll drop me a line at like 3 in the morning. Hey man, listen to the recent show. It's fucking funny as hell. I'm like, oh man, like that's awesome. Like it's a weird roundabout way to also keep in touch with old friends, for me at least, because
Yeah.
they'll react to what we're talking about. I can't remember what episode it was that was released recently, but he said he loved it. So I know he's biased because he's a friend, but at the same time, it's just like it warms my heart to hear that people saying great job, keep it up. So I was like, oh okay, this it's not just talking into the void. Like I felt like I was doing a few times, especially when I was doing solo shows. Um, there is an audience. There are people listening. To what degree, I don't know. I try to stay away from the ratings or the numbers that they put up on Libsyn, because I don't want to, get an inflated perspective of what's happening. If people listen, great. If people don't, again, there's so many shows out there that you can get for free, and I'm sure you'll find something that you enjoy. Um, this is not a true crime podcast, so I know we're not tapping into that demographic. We talk about anything under the sun nowadays. So whether that be wrestling, I'm sure we'll be talking about WrestleMania. Is WrestleMania this weekend or next weekend?
Next weekend.
Fuck, we have to try to catch up on these postings so we can talk about it more current. Um, but yeah, like movies, TV, wrestling, comics, games, whatever the case is, whatever comes across our table, and the same thing goes for you. If anything that you want to talk about that comes up, it's always an open forum for any like news or stories. So recently, it was like a quick rundown of different things. Like Marvel just announced a new game called Marvel Rivals for PC. It's gonna be a 6-on-6. You can play with different characters. It looks very much like Overwatch, just with Marvel characters. So you can fight each other and have a lot of fun. We've talked about X-Men '97 and the resurgence of that show, and now I think they're 3 episodes deep so far, and so far they've been doing great. Like the storyline and the animation, everything looks fantastic. We still haven't found out what happened between Bo DeMeo and Disney. Hopefully that story will eventually crack, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. There's just so many things that we could cover and talk about, but I just don't want to bog it down with just like a regular format of different things. Again, wrestling, the promo or the skit that I shouldn't say skit, but the backstage brawl between Cody and The Rock just throwing out the F bomb because he's gonna learn Cody some hard times. Um, TKO, the parent company of WWE, now saying, "Hey, look, we are still PG, but they're trying to push the storyline between Cody and The Rock." And Roman Reigns for the championship. They're trying to make it like a big deal and give it some high stakes. And apparently, The Rock feels that if you throw out a few choice words here and there, maybe it might just hit home a little bit more. And you hear the crowd react to it when he says, when you fuck with the final boss, and you hear the crowd go, "Oh shit!"
Mhm.
So stuff like that. I'm sure that's going to play out more and more. I mean, we could have been talking more about the storyline as it's leading up to Mania, but let's face it, everybody's just looking forward to Mania when it all comes down. But yeah, just the plethora, and I love that word, plethora. I learned it watching Three Amigos back in the day, of of news stories that we could be talking about. It's just how do you pick one, two, or a handful and just say, let's fit this into about an hour and change. So,
Mhm.
but we do what we can with what we got, and so far, I can't complain. Like this show has been a lot of fun, and I hope it continues to be. You know what I haven't done in a long time, and I've actually been thinking about this. Um,
What?
years ago, and I think during the pandemic, I think I did one as well. I did a state of the rabble address. I was being silly and just having fun with the idea of talking about like, what's going on with the show and the current events of what the show was going to be doing at the time, because it was, you know, you had moved out to PA. I was trying to figure out if I was still going to be able to manage to do the show on a solo um, end on my part, and how hard it was to try to just relay a show when you're talking to yourself. I haven't done one of those in a while. I'm thinking I'm gonna try to do it again. And I've talked to a bunch of different friends who I keep saying that, oh, you can be on the show anytime you want. Now with the rig that we currently have, I'll just call you up at home. So there's been a couple, two in particular that I really want to try to get on the show as far as like guests, and just sit down and talk about what's going on and how they came, how they came across the show, whether it was me telling them or they just happened upon it, and what's going on in their lives, because there's a lot of shit going on in our friends' lives, and it's just another way to try to keep up and keep in touch with people. So
Hmm.
good shit
Yeah,
overall. So I think we're there, sir. How do you feel?
tired.
You have off tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Yes, 3 more hours. No, I'm kidding.
Hmm.
We're not surprised we used to be. I think we've made it.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think what
Yes.
we covered everything that's here. Again, Crowbow, Ghostbusters, Running into Holly, Wings on Wings, Harrier Jet, Avenatti getting thrown in jail. Uh, weird shit. Like, it's to try to map it out, even on an episode by episode basis, it's kind of crazy. So,
Hmm.
if you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the ride, and many more to come. So we'll see what happens. But my name is Eric Hernandez,
I'm Doug.
and we are the Rabblecast.